The nature of the Anticana. One of the difficulties connected with the study of the Anticana is the fact that hitherto the work done upon the Anticana has been entirely unconscious. Therefore, the concept in men's minds relating to this form of creative work, and this construction of the bridge meets at first with little response from the mind nature. Also, in order to express these ideas, we have practically to create a new terminology, for there are no words suitable to define our meaning. Just as modern sciences have evolved a complete new terminology of their own during the past 40 years, so this science must develop its own peculiar vocabulary. In the meantime, we must do the best we can with the words at our disposal. The second point I would make is to ask those who are studying along these lines, to realize that in time they will arrive at understanding, but that at present all that they can do is to depend upon the unalterable tendency of the subconscious nature to penetrate to the surface of consciousness as a reflex activity in the establishing of continuity of consciousness. This reflex activity of the lower nature corresponds to the development of continuity between the superconscious and the consciousness which develops upon the path of discipleship. It is all a part, in 3 stages, of the integrating process, proving to the disciple that all of life is, in terms of consciousness, one of revelation. Ponder on this. Another of the difficulties in considering any of these esoteric sciences that deal with what has been called the conscious unfoldment of the divine recognitions, which is true awareness, is the ancient habit of humanity to materialize all knowledge. Everything man learns is applied, as the centuries pass, to the world of natural phenomena, and of natural process, and not to the recognition of the self, the knower, the beholder, the observer. When, therefore, man enters upon the path, he has to educate himself in the process of using knowledge in reference to the conscious self-aware identity, or to the self-contained, self-initiating individual. When he can do this, he is transmuting knowledge into wisdom. Previously I spoke of knowledge-wisdom, which are words synonymous with force energy. Knowledge use is force expressing itself. Wisdom use is energy in action. In these words you have the expression of the great spiritual law, one which you would do well to consider carefully. Knowledge force concerns the personality and the world of material values. Wisdom energy expresses itself through the consciousness thread and the creative thread, as they constitute in themselves a woven dual strand. They are, for the disciple, a fusion of the past, consciousness thread, and the present, the creative thread, and together they form what is usually called, upon the path of return, the Anticana. This is not entirely accurate. The wisdom energy thread is the sutratma or life thread, for the sutratma, when blended with the consciousness thread, is again also called the Anticana. Perhaps it might clarify the issue somewhat if I pointed out that though these threads eternally exist in time and space, they appear distinct and separate until a man is a probationary disciple, and therefore becoming conscious of himself and not only of the not-self. There is the life thread or sutratma and the consciousness thread, the one anchored in the heart and the other in the head. Throughout all the past centuries, the creative thread, in one or other of its 3 aspects, has been slowly woven by the man. Of this fact in nature his creative activity during the past 200 years is an indication, so that today the creative thread is a unity, generally speaking, as regards humanity as a whole, and specifically of the individual disciple, and forms a strong closely woven thread upon the mental plane. The rays and the initiations. To the trained occult observer, it is as if humanity, as a whole, is walking partly in the dense shadow which engulfs the rays, and some part of which involves an area of the body of every human being. One of the aims of the new age will be, to lighten this shadow and bring people out into the fitness of true health. This same shadow penetrates also into the mineral kingdom, affects the vegetable kingdom, and involves also the animals. It is one of the major causes of all that can be considered under the name of sin, which may surprise you. It is also the fertile seed of crime. This is a fact to be accepted, to be properly considered and dealt with rationally, sanely, intelligibly, and spiritually. It will require all the factors mentioned to lift humanity out of the darkness of disease into established and radiant health. Certain of the masters are dealing with this problem in relation to the other kingdoms in nature, for there will be no true escape for man whilst his environment is still under the shadow of disease. The esoteric healing. Beyond this triple group stand the thrones, principles, and powers with whom we need not concern ourselves. On the other side stands humanity, torn by the disasters of the past world war, bewildered by the social, religious and economic pressure of the present, sensitive and responsive to the influences and energies pouring in on the new tide of the Aquarian age. Unable to understand and explain, and conscious only of the longing for liberty of thought and of physical condition, snatching at every chance to gain knowledge and so providing a fertile field wherein this new group can work. We have seen that the objective of all inner training is to develop the esoteric sense, and to unfold that inner sensitive awareness which will enable a man to function, not only as a son of God in physical incarnation but as one who also possesses that continuity of consciousness which will enable him to be interiorly awake as well as exteriorly active. This is accomplished through developing the power to be a trained observer. I commend these words to all aspirants. It is persistence in the attitude of right observation that brings about detachment from form, a subsequent power to use form at will and with the end in view of furthering hierarchical plans and consequent usefulness to humanity. When this power to observe has been somewhat brought about, we then have the aspirant joining that intermediate group of trained communicators who stand between the aforementioned groups, the exoteric groups and the group of spiritual workers on the subjective plane, interpreting the one to the other. It is well to remember that even the members of the hierarchy profit by the opinions and advice of those disinterested disciples who can be trusted to rightly recognize and interpret the need of the hour. A treatise on white magic. 3. The technique of indifference. We come now to a brief study of the third aspect of illusion, to which we give the name Maya, and to the technique which can overcome it. We will deal next with the technique of indifference which is concerned with the distribution of soul force upon the physical plane, via the etheric plane, leading to inspiration. This is related to the science of the breath. What then is Maya? This, my brother, is not easy to define because it is related to the form-building activity of the planetary Logos himself. However, a consideration of the analogy existing between the microcosm and the macrocosm may help somewhat. The soul creates a threefold expression in the three worlds of human living. This is an occult truism. The outer form, the dual physical body, dense and vital or etheric, is produced, created, motivated, energized and conditioned by certain energies and forces emanating from those levels, whereon the soul has, rightly or wrongly, engineered a reaction of identification. Note this phrase, my brother. These make the man what he is. They give him his temperament, profession and quality upon the physical plane. They make him negative or positive to various types of impacting energy. They give him his character and make him what he appears to be to others. They produce his coloring, his capacities and his personality. With all of these the average man identifies himself. He believes himself to be the form, the medium through which he attempts to express his desires and his ideas. This complete identification with the transient creation, and with the outer appearance is Maya. It must be remembered that individual Maya is a fractional part of the world of energies and forces which constitute the life expression of the planetary Logos, which condition our outer planetary life, and make our planet what it appears to be to the other planets. The difference between man, the microcosm, and the planetary Logos, the Lord of the world, the macrocosm, lies in the fact that the Lord of the world is not identified with the Maya which he has created, and which has its purpose in eventually bringing about the release of the prisoners of the planet. To that Maya, he is supremely indifferent, and it is this divine indifference which has led to the great theological illusion of an anthropomorphic deity, and to the belief, in the East, that our planet is but the background, or the plaything of the gods. It is this cosmic indifference which has led to the human glamour concerning the inscrutable will of God, and to the affirmation that God is far away and not immanent in every creature and in every atom of which creatures are made. These are some aspects of the glamours and illusions which must be dispelled and dissipated, and, in the process, discovery will be made that the form is only Maya, and can be disregarded, that forces can be organized and directed by energy, and that the world of thought, the field of sentient consciousness and the playground of the energies are something apart from the thinker, from the one who feels and from the actor and player of the many parts which the soul undertakes to play. The disciple learns eventually to know himself to be, above everything else, whilst in incarnation, the director of forces. These he directs from the altitude of the divine observer, and through the attainment of detachment. These are things which I have oft told you before. These truths are, for you, only the platitudes of occultism, and yet, if you could but grasp the full significance of detachment and stand serene as the observing director, there would be no more waste motion, no more mistaken moves and no more false interpretations, no wandering down the bypaths of daily living, no seeing others through distorted and prejudiced vision, and, above all, no more misuse of force. A. Force distribution and manipulation upon the etheric plane. B. The use of the science of the breath. C. The technique of indifference. I have, in my other books, given much information anent the etheric body and the centers, major and minor, which are to be found within its radius. There is a tendency among students to identify the centers with the physical body in their thinking and not so clearly with the etheric body. This concerns location in the majority of cases, and is a mistake. Aspirants would do well to avoid any concentration at all upon the physical body and learn gradually to shift their focus of attention to the etheric body. Necessarily the physical body is active and potent, but increasingly it should be regarded as an automaton, influenced and directed by 1. The vital body and the forces of Maya. or by inspiration, emanating from points of spiritual tension. 2. The astral vehicle and the forces of glamour, or sentient, conscious love, emanating from the soul. 3. The mind and the forces of illusion, or by illumination, coming from higher sources than the life in the three worlds. 4. The soul, as the vehicle of monadic impression, until such time as the antakana is built, that bridging mental matter which will eventually link the monad and the personality. One of the problems which disciples have to solve is the source of the incentive, impulses, impressions or inspiration which, via the etheric body, sweep the physical vehicle into activity upon the physical plane, thus giving a demonstration of the quality, purpose and point, of tension of the incarnating man, and manifesting the nature of the man as he is at any particular point upon the ladder of evolution. According to the tensions and impulses indicated, will be the activity of the centers. You can see, therefore, how much that I teach reverses the usual occult procedures. I teach no mode of awakening the centers because right impulse, steady reaction to higher impulsions and the practical recognition of the sources of inspiration will automatically and safely swing the centers into needed and appropriate activity. This is the sound method of development. It is slower, but leads to no premature development and produces a rounded out unfoldment. It enables the aspirant to become truly the observer, and to know with surety what he is doing. It brings the centers, one by one, to a point of spiritual responsiveness and then establishes the ordered and cyclic rhythm of the controlled lower nature. That breathing exercises may eventually find a place in the training of the disciple, is true and possible, but they will be self-initiated as a result of rhythmic, living and a constant right use of the sacred word, the Om. When, for instance, a disciple in meditation sounds the Om 7 times, it is the equivalent of a breathing exercise. When he can send the energy thus generated on the wings of conscious planned thought to one or other of the centers, he is bringing about changes and readjustments within the mechanism which handles force, and when this can be carried out with ease and with the mind held at a point of thoughtful tension, then the disciple is well on the way to shifting his entire focus of attention away from the world of illusion, glamour and maya and into the realm of the soul, in the world of the clear cold light, and into the kingdom of God. When he also adds to this an understanding and the practice of the technique of indifference, he stands free and liberated and is essentially at all times the observer and user of the apparatus of manifestation. What is this technique? What is indifference? I wonder, brother of mine, if you understand the significance of this word, indifference? It means in reality the achieving of a neutral attitude towards that which is regarded as the not-self. It involves a repudiation of similarity. It marks the recognition of a basic distinction. It signifies refusal to be identified with anything save the spiritual reality, as far as that is sensed and known at any given point in time and space. It is, therefore, a much stronger and vital thing than what is usually meant when the word is used. It is active repudiation without any concentration upon that which is repudiated. That is a statement of moment, and warrants your careful consideration. It is concerned with the point of tension from which the observing disciple, or aspirant is working. The point of tension becomes the emanating source of some type of energy, and this pours down into and through the etheric body without being in any way affected by maya or by the concentration of diverse forces of which the etheric body is ever composed. Indifference, technically understood, signifies direct descent from there to here, without deviation or distortion. The manifesting entity, the disciple, stands steady and firm at this point of tension, and his first step is, therefore, to ascertain where that is, on what plane it is found, and what is the strength of the tension upon which he has to depend. The next step is to discover if that which he seeks to convey to the physical body, and thus produce effects upon the outer world of experiment and experience, is distorted by illusion of any kind, arrested in its expression by glamour, or liable to be sidetracked by uncontrolled forces and by the maya which these produce. This he ascertains not by identifying himself, stage by stage of descent, with the hindrances and possible obstructions, but by intensifying his point of tension, by the constant recollection of the truth that he is the self, and not the not-self, and by a process of projection. This projection is defined as sending of energy, qualified and recognized, from the point of tension direct and undeviatingly to the vital body from whence it can find its way to the 7 centers of control. It is at this point that he applies the technique of indifference, for, if he does not, that which he is seeking to express may be held up and arrested by etheric force or by the veils of maya. He works consequently from a point of intense concentration. He refuses any attachment to any form or plane as he projects the energy into and through the 3 worlds. When he discovers any arresting or sidetracking of progress through active illusion or glamour, he detaches himself consciously from such contacts and braces himself for the final stage of indifference, or repudiation of all forces except those which he, consciously and with purpose, is seeking to use upon the physical plane. In the last analysis, my brother, the point of tension for the average disciple will be found on mental levels, involving the illumined mind, and a growing soul contact. A. He will be able then to see clearly in the light of the soul, and with a developed sense of values, he can consequently dispel illusion. b. He will be able to project light, consciously, onto the astral plane and can thus dissipate glamour. c. He will be able to pour light energy through the etheric body, and anchor the light or energy in the appropriate centers, because there will be complete indifference, or non-identification with Maya. Where the initiate is concerned, the process is carried on at first from a point of tension within the soul and later from a point of tension in the spiritual triad. In all cases, however, once within the ring pass not of the three worlds, the directing energy produces results as outlined in this book and brings about 1. The dispelling of illusion. 2. The dissipation of glamour. 3. The overcoming of Maya. It sounds fairly simple, and easy of accomplishment as the aspirant reads these fairly simple elucidations of a difficult process, but that in itself is delusion. Age-long identification with the form side of life is not easily overcome, and the task ahead of the disciple is a long and arduous one, but one which promises eventual success, provided there is clear thinking, earnest purpose, and planned scientific work. Glamour, a world problem, the technique of indifference.